Hi, I'm Hugh Falk, and welcome to this video called We the People. Most Americans look to God in troubled times. They feel reassured by our heritage, our traditions of liberty. We the people are the first three words of the preamble to the Constitution. We the people is the central concept enshrined in the Constitution. We the people are speaking out at the grassroots. The mission statement of the Bellingham Tea Party organization reads, "The Bellingham Tea Party's mission is to reverse deficit spending and the concentration of power in central government in order to preserve states' rights and individual liberty for future generations." The original Boston Tea Party was a response to an overreaching British government back in the 1700s. The TEA, or Tax Enough Already, tea parties across the United States today are a response to the threat of new taxes and great public debt. Now we need to talk about health care.
My concern with this health care bill is also the fact that it could be very costly, and that the taxes for not only the wealthy individuals in our country but also the middle class will go up as a result. And I don't think that that's something that we can afford as a nation. I also don't want to see my children and my grandchildren paying for this for years to come. I don't like to be in debt, and I don't want to see our country go in debt over this.
Our grandchildren are already in debt because of this, and they're not even born.
I believe that health care needs to be reformed. I heard yesterday on the radio that if you broke down the spending for the new health care reform, it would be $20,000 a family. Spending like this has to stop. I especially think about my family. I don't spend money that I don't have. It's a bad situation. And it is the same for the government, to spend money that they don't have.
I'm a practicing physician, and I'm opposed to the health care proposals before Congress. Our Constitution specifically limits the power of the federal government, and during the past 70 years, Congress has increasingly usurped those limits and has thereby compromised our nation's liberty and our own personal liberty. And that's what the prosperity of this country depends on. If enacted, health care reform would largely complete the government's quest for unlimited ability to oversee, regulate, and tax our existence.
Before I heard a thing about Obama's plan for health care, our debt stood in the trillions. And now we've learned that the Chinese are becoming hesitant about dealing with our debt and buying our T-bills. And health care is going to increase the debt at least $1 trillion more. We can't afford it. The interest on that debt we can't afford.
I'm against the auto industry bailouts because, again, what has happened is we've used taxpayer monies to bail out companies that should have rightly failed, but we've used this money to take care of the unions, and I think that's wrong. In a capitalistic system, those companies, no company should be too big to fail. There are plenty of companies that would have come in and filled the void. So I just think it was wrong.
The Congressional Budget Office has already stated that Medicare and Medicaid is $39 trillion underfunded. By adding the new health plan to it, it's just going to cost an extremely amount more. If you consider the amount of money that is, a stack of $1,000 bills for $1 million is 6 inches high, for $1 billion is 300 feet high, and $1 trillion is 67 miles of $1,000 bills. Where's this taking our country?
The cap and trade bill will be a tax on industry and American citizens at a very time when many Americans are already struggling financially through a stubborn recession. By the administration's own admission, we're looking at a $7 to $10 trillion deficit over the next 10 years.
Concerning socialism and communism, in my adult life, most of my thoughts about national defense over the last 40 or 50 years has been to stop the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, there's no such thing as private industry. It was a totally socialized economy. And so we spent 40 or 50 years fending that off. And now there's the threat of creeping socialism coming into our economy right inside the United States, from inside. Throughout the nearly 55 interviews that we've done, whether it's talk about healthcare or talk about cap and trade, an underlying theme has been people's concern about their loss of constitutional liberties, even a threat to the Constitution itself. And that brings us to the final topic, the Constitution. And so let's hear what Susan has to say about that.
When Benjamin Franklin was asked what form of government he was giving to America, he replied, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." Benjamin Franklin knew that liberty was hard to come by and even harder to keep. He understood that liberty was predicated upon a self-governing people under the authority of God, the God of the Bible. The question for us now is, do we, the people, still have the will to be a self-governing people under God's authority? Or will we abdicate our responsibility and that awesome privilege to the government? If we abdicate to the government, it's only a matter of time before we too will taste the bitter tears of tyranny. So I charge you today, my elected representatives and my fellow citizens, to stand up and fight for our liberty. It's worth fighting for.
You know, the best quote that I've heard during all of this debate that's been going on is the fact that here we are and we're standing there while government is putting the shackles around our ankles and we're quibbling about what kind of chains they're going to use. Do you hear that? Do you understand that?
In a way, I feel like they're either exploiting or even sometimes manufacturing the divide between us. So we're fighting amongst each other over the fruit on the tree while they're hacking away at the trunk of the tree.
Where are you? Ron, your concern is that Congress isn't really deliberating on this health care proposal.
I would be much happier if I saw that our legislators were more diligent in listening to their constituents. I feel like we as citizens are not being heard. And I feel like that our legislators are pushing this health care proposal through without our consent. I believe it's a government grab for power, and it's going to allow the government to be far too intrusive into our lives.
My wife, Sherry, and I are really concerned about our freedom. We've never felt so bad in our whole time of politics in our near 70 years of life. Our liberty and our individual rights are being abridged, and I can relate family-wise to this type of problem. My father escaped Siberia from the Bolsheviks in 1917. My mother came to this country from Manchuria to flee the problems over there in 1923, and they lectured me and told me and got me to believe in our freedom and our ability to talk to our senators and our representatives and try to get a response.
So where do we go from here? Actually, I'm reassured, I'm humbled, and I'm honored. The reason for that is I've discovered so many fantastic people while I've been doing this project. They're concerned, they're generous, and they're energetic, and they are very thoughtful and have good ideas. I'm reassured God's in control. I'm reassured because we have a great framework in our Constitution. We just need to have faith. Please join me in supporting the Tea Party mission. Please join us in seeking smaller government, seeking free enterprise solutions to our problems. Please join me in unleashing the enormous energy of our creative people. We will find candidates to join our mission. Thanks for listening, and thanks for joining.